One of the first definitions of sustainability was the one published in 1987 in the Brundtland Report entitled Our Common Future by the World Commission on Environment and Development. Well, in this definition, sustainable development is the one that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. It's very interesting to note the recognition of the need of a commitment between the present and the future. That is, that what we do today has significant consequences on what future generations will be able to do and how they will be able to live. So from this standpoint, we'll start seeing some basic concepts of sustainability, and then we'll try to relate those concepts with architecture and in detail with housing design in architecture. So first of all, let's see what needs are we talking to in this definition of sustainability. So of course we are talking about the needs of people, because it is about people that sustainability is concerned. So what are the needs of people? Of course, we have basic needs. We need to be happy and to be comfortable and to be safe. We should perform our activities in an appropriate way. And if we consider that we spend most of our lives inside buildings, so of course we should design architecture for the human being. And we should also bear in mind that what we do and how we feel is not an exact science. We may be happy, and we also are sometimes quite sad. And still we need to be comfortable and we need to be safe. As humans, we also depend on other natural systems. There are other species sharing the planet with us, and we all define a global complex system that has its own disruptive moments. Everything we do and everything we manufacture needs resources, and at least for the time being, these resources come solely from the planet. Every object we produce has within its supply chain natural resources that come from the planet. For instance, in this photograph we have a quarry, a stone quarry, which is, I believe, a very good example of this relationship between architecture and the resources we take from the earth. Also, everything we do generates waste we dispose of, and well, lots of waste we produce every day in the planet. And this waste is processed in some way, and the consequences of this processing is also depends on the ability of this natural complex system to regenerate itself. Let's now look at this relationship between the present and the future. We have to assure that living in this planet will be a good thing to do in the future, that human beings will be able to share the natural system with the other species. We also have to be sure that in the future our descendants will have the resources they need to fulfill the needs and to be happy and safe in this planet. The size of the planet will not increase, so the amount of resources and the ability to process waste is and will be the same as it was before. So this means we have to be sure to be able to live within the limits of this complex natural system.
sei que não é o melhor sítio, também não é a altura certa, mas guarda lá as armas todas e tira também o alerta. Por trás desses cabelos loiros, desculpa lá que eu insista, mas brancas estão as alegrias, está o meu querer, a minha crista, vem lá comigo passear.
Unfortunately, human societies do not take advantage and do not use these natural resources in a balanced way. So there's a very important social dimension we have to cope with. So these are the basic three dimensions of sustainability. Environment, because of the resources and the waste we produce. Of course, when we talk about waste, we talk about solid waste and greenhouse gas emissions and so on. The second dimension is society, because we need to have a balance in the way human beings use the available resources on the planet. And of course, there's also this third dimension of economy, because the things we do should be affordable and also sustainable from a financial point of view. So now let's see what is the relationship between architecture and sustainability, and particularly what is the relationship between residential architecture and sustainability. Please bear in mind this is a very brief introduction to the theme. So let's see this relationship within those three basic dimensions. So from the society point of view, what we need to know is that, of course, residential architecture should be for everyone. So we need to design and to build architecture that has the ability to be a shelter for everyone on this planet. And these buildings should allow us to perform our activities in a safe and, as we already saw, also in a comfortable way. And this, of course, has very significant implications in the architectural design process, but also, of course, in the building process. From the economy point of view, what we need to understand is that these buildings should be durable. They have to stand, and they have to maintain the ability of being safe and comfortable for as many years as possible. And this, of course, also means that not only should they have durable materials and durable building solutions, but they also need to adapt to what is the evolution of the society and the population that is occupying those buildings. So architecture should at some point be adaptable and be evolutionary, so it can adapt to future needs and future functions. So now let's see in this relationship between architecture and sustainability, that third dimension, the environmental dimension. Of course, this is dependent on the fact that we live in this natural system, and of course we are talking about natural resources that we need to produce these architectural objects. We have to know that in the European Union, the building sector, the building industry accounts for something like 40% of all the resources that are used in this geographical region. But also, as we saw before, it's not only about resources, it's also about waste. So, with this huge weight in the final consumption of resources, we need to know how to design buildings so we can lower the uses of these natural resources. And on top of that, there's a very interesting thing, which is we can take advantage of some other natural resource which is in this case the sun, that can help us reducing the need for natural resources of the earth and have very comfortable and safe buildings. So we have to understand what is this natural resource, how it reaches the planet, what means to be in different latitudes, what does it mean from the standpoint of the solar energy we can have inside the building. For instance, this is a very interesting thing. In Lisbon, we can see by this graph that in Lisbon the amount of solar gain in a south-facing window is less in summer than it is in winter, which is a very, very good thing for us architects, because then we can take advantage of this energy when we most need it, which is in winter because we have cold days, and we can somehow try to control it better in summer when we do not want this energy to come inside buildings, because it will then generate overheating. And this means also to understand what features should we design in our buildings, so to have a good balance between natural lighting and solar gains. So how can we design with solar radiation? And of course, as I told you before, these are just a few examples of what we can do with natural resources. Now, this is another example. This is a building in Lisbon. It's called Solar 21, where photovoltaic panels in the facade are also used to promote passive strategies for heating and cooling. Also, another important aspect is what is the right balance between daylighting and artificial lighting, and what we do and when do we want to have artificial lighting, and what is the impact of this artificial lighting in the natural resources used to produce energy. Of course, there's also the issue about what are the new sources of energy we may use, so to avoid the use of non-renewable energy sources in the planet. And finally, just in this brief introduction, perhaps one of the most important aspects is the materials we use in buildings, so the materials we use in architectural design. It's a huge amount, as I told you before, and we have to try to understand what are the best ways to acknowledge this impact and to try to evaluate this impact, but also in a simple way, so we can, within our architectural design work, we can try to understand what can we do from a practical point of view to lower the impacts we have with the usage of material. So now let's look at some basic issues about the use of materials and the environmental impact of materials. Of course, we have to understand this within all the life cycle of the building and of the life cycle of the material, which means since the first extraction of the natural resource until the end of the life of the material, so when it is finally disposed of as final waste. So there are lots of life phases in this cycle. First of all, extraction, which means the first extraction of the natural resource, processing, and this processing may also use other materials as well as other resources like energy, packaging, because almost everything we produce needs at some point to be packed, and transport. And transport is also a major contributor to these impacts, mainly because of energy issues. Then storage, construction, which is at this point we start the life cycle of the building itself, and then the phase of use, operation and maintenance of the building, which is the longest period of the building, and it also needs some resources to be performed. Then one possibility at the end of the life cycle of the building will be demolition, but also, and we should try to deepen these knowledge, is to reuse or to recycle the materials before they are final waste that we cannot reuse or recycle, and then that go to final processing. So what we will see in the workshop in Lisbon, where you will be most welcomed, is how to calculate for a specific building solution what we call the embodied energy and the embodied carbon. This means that what was the amount of energy needed for the construction of that specific building solution, and what were the CO2 equivalent emissions, so the emissions of greenhouse gas that were needed to produce that and to build that construction solution. Of course, this is a simplified way of understanding the environmental impact of materials, but we also know nowadays that these two indicators are a quite good way of evaluating this impact. So I hope this was a useful brief introduction to sustainability and housing architecture, and I'll be waiting for you in Lisbon. Thank you.